The wind howled through the dense pine forest, carrying with it the bitter chill of early winter. Snowflakes fell in soft, silent sheets, blanketing the ground in white. Amid the towering trees, a small cabin sat perched on a hill, smoke curling from its chimney. Inside, Illyra moved quietly, tending a small fire in the hearth. Her hands were steady, though the room was dim, lit only by the flickering flames and the pale moonlight that slipped through the frost-covered windows. Illyra had chosen this life long ago. She had no family, no city to return to, and no one to answer to but herself. The forest was her sanctuary, and the creatures within it her companions. She knew every trail, every hidden stream, and every secret glade. She had grown attuned to the subtle whispers of the woods, the rustle of leaves that signaled a predator, the soft snap of twigs that marked someone or something passing by tonight. However, the forest carried a different rhythm. Something was wrong. Illyra's sharp ears caught it first, a faint, agonized whine, almost drowned by the wind. She froze, listening. The sound came again, this time closer, more desperate. Without thinking, she grabbed her cloak and stepped outside. The cold biting her cheeks, her boots crunching over fresh snow, the sound led her to a small clearing. There, trapped in a cruel iron snare, was a wolf. Its fur was matted with blood, and its breathing was ragged. The animal's eyes, golden and fierce, met hers, and in that moment, something unspoken passed between them. Illyra's heart clenched. She had cared for wounded animals before, but this wolf, there was a strange power in its gaze, a wild intelligence that seemed almost human. Carefully she approached. "It's okay," she murmured softly, her voice carrying through the cold air. The wolf growled weakly, trying to pull free, but the metal trap held firm. Illyra knelt beside it, her hands steady as she examined the wound. It was deep, likely from the trap itself, and already showing signs of infection. If she didn't act quickly, the wolf would not survive the night. Illyra worked fast, her breath forming clouds in the frigid air. She loosened the trap with careful precision, whispering soothing words to the wolf all the while. When the snare finally fell away, she wrapped the trembling creature in her thick cloak, lifting it gently into her arms. Its weight was considerable, and its body shivered violently, but it did not struggle. The wolf seemed to understand that she meant no harm. Back in the cabin, Illyra laid the wolf on a thick blanket near the hearth. She cleaned the wound with heated water and herbs, murmuring spells of healing she had learned from old tomes. Her hands were steady, but her heart pounded in her chest. She had no idea why, but she felt connected to this wolf in a way she had never felt with any other creature as she worked. Shadows danced along the walls, cast by the flickering firelight. For a moment, Illyra thought she saw a figure in the shadows, a man, tall and commanding, with eyes like polished steel. She blinked, and he was gone. She shook her head, blaming the long night and the strain of caring for the wolf. Yet, even as she returned to her task, a shiver ran down her spine, as if unseen eyes were still upon her. The wolf's breathing slowly steadied under her care. Its head rested against her arm, its golden eyes half closed. Illyra felt a strange warmth spread through her chest. She knew the creature was not yet out of danger, but for now it was safe. She wrapped the cloak tighter around its body and allowed herself to sit back, exhaustion pulling at her limbs. Hours passed in quiet vigil. The storm outside raged on, but inside the cabin was a small haven of warmth and light. Illyra spoke softly to the wolf, telling it stories of the forest of the stars, of the small joys she found in her solitary life. The wolf listened, or at least seemed to, its chest rising and falling with steadier breaths. As dawn approached, the storm began to wane, leaving behind a world blanketed in pristine snow. Illyra leaned against the hearth, her eyes heavy with fatigue. For a moment, sleep claimed her, and she drifted into a dreamless slumber. In that sleep, she was not alone. The shadow she had glimpsed earlier returned, more vivid this time. The figure stood at the edge of the clearing outside her cabin, watching her and the wolf. Though his face was partially hidden by a dark hood, she felt the intensity of his gaze. There was power in him, raw and undeniable, but also a strange sorrow, a longing that seemed almost familiar. Illyra awoke with a start, her heart pounding. But when she looked around, the cabin was empty. The wolf still asleep at her feet and the snow outside untouched. Yet the feeling lingered, the weight of unseen eyes. The sense that something had changed in the forest the moment she had taken the wolf in her arms. She glanced down at the creature, its golden eyes opening briefly to meet hers. In that gaze, she thought she saw a spark of recognition. A silent acknowledgement that their fates were somehow intertwined. The day passed slowly. Illyra tended to the wolf's wounds, fed it warm broth and whispered reassurances. Outside, the wind continued to howl, carrying with it the distant cries of wolves and the rustle of unseen creatures moving through the trees. She knew she could not stay cooped in the cabin forever. The forest held dangers she had not yet encountered, and this wolf, whatever it truly was, would need more than shelter to survive. By evening, the wolf stirred. Lifting its head and looking toward the door as if sensing something beyond the walls of the cabin, Illyra followed its gaze and felt a chill run through her. The forest beyond was dark, endless, and full of secrets. She tightened her cloak around her shoulders and knelt beside the wolf. "You'll be safe here tonight," she whispered, brushing a hand over its fur. The wolf leaned into her touch, and she felt a thrill of connection, a sense that this creature was more than a simple animal. It was a guardian, a companion, being tied to a fate she could not yet understand. Night fell again, and with it, a profound silence. Illyra kept the fire burning and watched over the wolf, her thoughts drifting to the shadow she had seen in her dream. Who was he? Why did she feel that unspoken pull toward him? She shook her head, dismissing the thoughts. She had worked to nurture the wolf, survive the winter, and keep her cabin safe. But deep down, she could not ignore the feeling that the forest had shifted the moment she took the wounded wolf into her arms. There was a pulse, a rhythm in the snow and trees that seemed to beat in time with her own heart. Something was coming, something that would break the quiet of her life and sweep her into a world she had never imagined. Exhausted, she finally lay down near the hearth, the wolf resting beside her, its breathing calm and even. The flames flickered, casting shadows that danced like spirits on the walls. She closed her eyes, letting herself drift, feeling the warmth of the fire and the presence of the wolf as a comfort against the cold. And yet, somewhere in the forest beyond, eyes watched. Silent, calculating, and patient. Waiting. Cliffhanger. Illyra's dreams were restless. She felt the presence of someone powerful, a man with eyes like steel and a voice that echoed in the wind. He was coming. And when he arrived, nothing in her secluded life would ever be the same. The morning sun had barely touched the treetops when a sharp knock shattered the fragile quiet of Illyra's cabin. She stirred, heart pounding, the wolf at her side lifting its head and growling softly. The knock came again, louder, deliberate, almost commanding. Illyra rose cautiously, her fingers brushing the edge of the knife she kept at her side, and crept toward the door. Through the frost-lined window, she saw him. A man stood there, taller than any she had ever seen, draped in black fur with silver trim. His dark hair framed a face both noble and severe, and his eyes, sharp and golden brown, seemed to pierce through the wood of the cabin door. There was power in him, undeniable and overwhelming, yet also a strange sadness lurking beneath the surface. Illyra swallowed hard. Who are you?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I am Keleth," he said, his voice deep, steady, and commanding. "Alpha of the northern clans. I have come for the wolf you saved." Illyra's grip tightened on the knife, instinct warring with curiosity. The wolf. "It is my responsibility now. It was hurt, and I cared for it. It is not yours to claim." Keleth's eyes narrowed slightly, but he did not move to attack. Instead, he simply studied her, as though weighing her spirit. "This wolf is no ordinary creature," he said after a pause. "It is bound to me, cursed by a rival king. If it had died, I would have suffered as well. You have saved more than its life. You have altered the fate of us both." Illyra's heart skipped. She had never heard of a wolf bound to a man, nor of curses that linked animals to kings. Yet something about Keleth's presence felt irresistibly real, almost otherworldly. She glanced down at the wolf, now resting its head on her knee, its golden eyes lifting briefly to meet hers. She shivered, sensing that the connection between the wolf and the man before her was deeper than she could understand. "I do not understand," she admitted. "Why would a wolf belong to a man? And why do you come here? You are far from your kingdom." Keleth's expression softened, though his posture remained regal. "I came because the bond we share is strong. The wolf fled, wounded, and it called to you. Only your hands, your heart, were gentle enough to heal it. I must know who has touched my companion." Elira's pulse raced. His words were not threatening, yet they carried a weight she could not ignore. There was truth in them, a kind of raw honesty that both unsettled and intrigued her. "You speak as if the wolf is." "More than an animal," she said cautiously. "It is," Keleth replied. "It is bound to my soul. Its suffering is my suffering, its death my death. And now, you are connected to it as well." Elira felt a chill despite the fire. Her hand shook slightly as she reached down to stroke the wolf's fur. She had nursed it back to health, but she had never imagined that doing so could bring her into the orbit of a powerful king, or a man with eyes that seemed to look into the very core of her being. Keleth stepped closer, his boots crunching softly on the wooden floor. Elira instinctively moved back, but she could not tear her gaze away from him. There was a presence about him that demanded both attention and respect, yet also stirred something in her that she could not name. "You saved him," Keleth said quietly, almost reverently. "And in doing so, you have drawn yourself into a world far larger than your cabin, your forest, or your solitude. Do you understand what that means?" Elira's mind raced. She had lived alone for so long, safe in her isolation. She had cared for animals, tended the forest, and kept to herself. But now, standing before a man like Keleth, she realized how fragile that life had been. And yet, beneath her fear, a spark of curiosity flared. "What do you want from me?" she asked. Keleth's gaze softened, though his eyes remained intense. "I need you to come with me. There is danger approaching, a curse that will not rest until it is fully broken. The wolf you saved is tied to this curse. And so, by saving it, you have tied yourself to this fate as well. If you care for it tanned for life itself, you will come with me into the lands where the curse lives." Elira swallowed hard, the words echoing in her mind. To leave the cabin, her sanctuary, for lands unknown, was terrifying. Yet there was a strange pull in Keleth's words, a magnetism she could not resist. She glanced at the wolf, who now lifted its head and let out a soft, almost approving growl. It seemed to understand, in a way she did not yet. I cannot just leave," she said, her voice wavering. "This is my home. The forest. The cabin? It is all I have." Keleth knelt slightly to meet her eyes, his presence calm, yet unyielding. "You have more than a home. You have courage. And courage is what will guide us. If you do not come, the wolf may die again, and the curse will grow stronger. The choice is yours, but time is short." Elira looked into his eyes and saw no threat, only a truth she could not deny. Her hands tightened on the wolf's fur, and slowly a resolve began to form within her. She had saved this creature's life once, she could not turn away now. "I will come," she said finally, her voice steady, though her heart pounded. "But you must promise me it will not harm me, or the forest." Keleth straightened, a faint, almost imperceptible smile crossing his face. "You have my word. I do not harm those who protect life. But I warn you, the path ahead is dangerous. Shadows wait in every corner, and not all creatures of this land are what they seem. We will face trials, Elira, and we will face them together." The wolf stirred, nudging Elira gently as if urging her onward. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. Her life of quiet isolation was ending. A new life, one filled with danger, magic, and mystery, was beginning. And at the center of it was this man powerful, haunting, and impossibly magnetic. As they prepared to leave, Keleth moved to the door first, his presence commanding the space. Elira followed, the wolf between them. She felt a mixture of fear, excitement, and an unspoken connection to this man who had stepped into her life so suddenly. Every step they took toward the forest's edge was heavy with anticipation and tension, as if the trees themselves were holding their breath. The first miles were silent. The snow muffled their footsteps, and the forest seemed to watch them, alive with whispers of unseen eyes. Keleth's presence was a constant weight beside her, protective but intimidating. Illyra felt the pull of his power, yet also the warmth of his humanity, and she realized that she was beginning to trust him, even as every instinct warned caution. Night fell swiftly, and the moon rose, casting silver light across the snow-covered ground. They reached a narrow valley where shadows clung like living things. Keleth stopped, raising a hand to signal Illyra to stay back. His eyes scanned the darkness, alert and unblinking. "There is danger here," he said quietly. "Stay close to the wolf. Its bond will protect you, but you must not falter." Illyra nodded, her hands gripping the wolf's fur. She felt a shiver run down her spine, not from the cold, but from the intensity of the moment, the presence of the Alpha King, the mystery of what lay ahead. Suddenly a low growl echoed from the shadows. Illyra froze, heart pounding. Keleth's eyes glowed faintly, and he moved in front of her, placing himself between her and whatever lurked in the darkness. The growl came again, louder, closer. The snow around them seemed to tremble with the presence of something ancient, powerful, and dangerous. Illyra felt the wolf stiffen in her arms, and instinctively she wrapped it tighter, feeling its pulse quicken against her chest. Keleth's voice was calm but commanding. "Stay calm. Do not make sudden movements. Trust me in the bond you have helped strengthen. We are not alone, but we are ready." The shadows shifted, and Illyra caught a glimpse of glowing eyes watching them. She felt a surge of fear, but also a strange thrill, knowing that her life had changed forever. She was no longer just a woman in a cabin. She was part of something larger, something dangerous, and something that could not exist without her courage. Cliffhanger. The glowing eyes in the shadows moved closer, revealing a creature both beautiful and terrifying. Illyra felt Keleth tense beside her, and the wolf growled, a sound that carried both warning and recognition. In that moment, she realized that the journey ahead would test her in ways she had never imagined, and that the Alpha King's world was far darker, far stranger, and far more compelling than anything she had ever known. The forest grew darker as Illyra and Keleth ventured deeper. The trees, tall and ancient, seemed to lean inward, their twisted branches forming shadows that danced in the moonlight. Each step they took on the snow-laden ground felt heavy, as though the forest itself was aware of their presence. Illyra tightened her cloak around her shoulders, feeling both the cold and an unfamiliar thrill. The wolf, now more alert than ever, padded beside them, its golden eyes scanning the shadows. Illyra noticed how it occasionally glanced at Keleth, as if communicating silently. She did not understand the bond fully, but she could sense its depth. Keleth, too, seemed attuned to the wolf, moving with an ease that spoke of familiarity and long years of connection. "This forest is old," Keleth said, his voice low and measured. "Older than most kingdoms. Shadows linger here, memories of battles long forgotten, and spirits that refuse to rest. We must tread carefully." Illyra nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. She had spent her life among the woods, but this part of the forest felt different. There was a weight in the air, a sense of history, and a quiet tension that made her pulse quicken. For hours they walked in silence, following narrow paths hidden beneath the snow. Occasionally the wolf would stop, its ears twitching, and Keleth would raise a hand, signaling Illyra to wait. More than once she caught herself holding her breath, straining to see what her companion had sensed. As night deepened, came to a glade, illuminated by the pale glow of the moon. In the center stood an ancient stone altar, cracked and worn by time. Its surface was etched with runes that pulsed faintly with a silver light. Keleth approached it, his expression solemn. "This place is sacred," he said. "Long ago, my ancestors bound the spirits here to protect the lands, but a rival king twisted that magic, cursing my wolf and those who protect it. We are close to the source of the curse now. Lyra's gaze wandered to the runes. They seemed to hum, almost alive, their glow reflecting in the wolf's golden eyes. She felt a strange energy in the air, and a shiver ran down her spine. She had cared for injured animals, but never had she felt the weight of magic pressing down so heavily. Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath them, and a shadow moved along the perimeter of the glade. Elira's heart raced as she instinctively stepped behind Keleth. The wolf growled low in its throat, hair bristling. From the darkness emerged a figure cloaked in black, its form shifting and almost ethereal. Elira's breath caught in her throat. She had heard stories of forest spirits, but seen one was something else entirely. Its eyes glowed faintly, and the air around it was thick with cold. "You dare approach this place?" Keleth's voice rang out, firm and commanding. The figure paused, then tilted its head, a mocking sound escaping it. "The bond grows stronger," it said in a voice like wind through dead trees. "Soon, the woman will be more than a caretaker. She will be tied to your fate." Lyra's hands shook as she clutched the wolf closer. She felt the tension in Keleth beside her, his body a shield, ready to act. Yet there was something in the figure's words that unsettled her. Being tied to Keleth's fetit was a thought both frightening and compelling. The spirit's form twisted, reaching toward them with shadowy tendrils. Keleth stepped forward, placing himself between Elira and the approaching darkness. "You will not touch her," he said, his voice resonating with power. The runes on the altar flared brighter, sending silver light across the clearing. The shadow recoiled, and for a moment, silence fell over the glade. Elira's heart pounded, her mind struggling to comprehend what had just happened. "What? What was that?" she asked softly. "That was one of the guardians of the curse," Keleth replied, his eyes never leaving the darkness. "It tests us to see if we are worthy of approaching the source. We must continue, but we must remain vigilant. Many trials await, each more dangerous than the last." Elira nodded, her courage slowly building. She had faced fear before, but never like this, never with the stakes so high. And never with a man whose presence both frightened and captivated her. Keleth's steady demeanor gave her confidence, and she realized that trusting him was not just necessary, but essential. They continued their journey, moving carefully through the dense forest. As they walked, Elira stole glances at Keleth. He was a man of contrast, strong and commanding, yet with moments of gentleness. When the wolf stumbled over a hidden root, Keleth caught it before it fell, murmuring a word of reassurance. Elira felt a flutter in her chest at the sight, though she quickly turned her gaze to the trees, unwilling to dwell on it. Hours passed, and exhaustion began to weigh on her. The cold seeped into her bones, and her steps grew slower. Yet the wolf seemed tireless, its golden eyes scanning constantly for danger, and Keleth never faltered. They finally reached a small clearing where a frozen stream cut through the forest. Elira knelt to sip water, her fingers numbed by cold, and Keleth watched silently, his gaze unwavering. "You are doing well," he said quietly. "Most would have faltered long before now, but you have strength, and more importantly, you have heart. That is what the curse cannot withstand." Elira's cheeks flushed. She was not accustomed to praise, especially from someone like him. "I am just helping the wolf," she said, her voice soft. "I do not know if I am strong enough for anything else." Keleth stepped closer, his shadow falling over her. "Strength is not always measured by power alone," he said. "It is measured by courage, by choices, and by the willingness to face what others cannot. You have that. That is why you are here." Elira felt a warmth in her chest that had nothing to do with the fire. It was a quiet recognition, a bond forming not just with the wolf, but with this man who had entered her life so suddenly. And yet there was tension in that warmth, a fear of what it might mean. Suddenly, the wolf stiffened, ears twitching. Elira followed its gaze to the trees, where shadows seemed to move with purpose. A pack of wolves emerged from the darkness, their eyes glinting in the moonlight. But these were no ordinary wolves. They were larger, their forms almost spectral. Their presence radiated a sense of menace. Keleth's posture shifted, protective and commanding. "Stay close," he said, drawing a sword from his belt. Its blade shimmered faintly, imbued with a magic Illyra could not yet understand. The spectral wolves circled, their growls low and threatening. Yet they did not attack. "They are testing us," Keleth said quietly. More to himself than to Illyra, they sensed the bond, and they wished to challenge it. "Stand firm." Illyra's hands shook slightly, but she remained close to Keleth, feeling the wolf press against her side. The tension in the clearing was almost unbearable, the air thick with magic and anticipation. Then, as quickly as they had appeared, the spectral wolves backed away, vanishing into the shadows. Leaving the clearing silent once more, Illyra exhaled, her body trembling. "What? What was that?" she asked. "Another test," Keleth replied, sheathing his sword. "The curse has many guardians. Each trial strengthens the bond, but also reveals weaknesses. You must be ready, Illyra. The most difficult challenges are yet to come." Illyra nodded, though fear and excitement warred within her. She had ventured into this forest alone before, but never had she faced such trials. Never had she felt the weight of magic, destiny, and connection so profoundly as they resumed their journey. The first hints of dawn began to break over the horizon. The snow glimmered in soft pink light, and the forest seemed to exhale, releasing the tension of the night. Illyra looked at Keleth, his silhouette strong against the rising sun, and felt a spark of something she could not name respect. Trust, maybe even the beginning of something deeper. The wolf, sensing the change in light and the passing of night, let out a soft howl, a sound that seemed both triumphant and warning. Illyra felt it resonate within her, a reminder that their journey was far from over, and she knew, without doubt, that the path ahead would demand everything of her: courage, heart, and perhaps even a willingness to trust in someone. She had only just met Cliffhanger as they reached the edge of the next forest glade. Illyra noticed a towering figure standing silently among the trees, watching them. Its presence was cold, unnerving, and undeniably powerful. Keleth's hand tightened on his sword, and the wolf growled low. Illyra realized in that moment that the trials were far from over, and that this new figure might hold the key to both danger and revelation. The morning mist hung thick over the forest, curling around tree trunks like restless spirits. Illyra shivered, though it was not only the cold that made her tremble. The figure they had seen at the edge of the glade the night before was gone now, but the weight of its presence lingered, an invisible pressure pressing against her chest. She kept close to Keleth, walking beside him with careful steps, the wolf padding silently at their side. Keleth's gaze swept constantly through the trees, alert and unyielding. "We are nearing the heart of the cursed lands," he said quietly. "This is where the shadows grow strongest. You must be prepared for more than just danger from creatures. The curse itself will test you." Illyra swallowed hard. She had faced fear before wolves, spectral guardians, the shadows of the forest, but something in Keleth's voice told her that what lay ahead would be unlike anything she had ever encountered. They moved through narrow paths, the snow crunching underfoot, the silence broken only by the occasional whisper of wind through the pines. Illyra felt her muscles tighten, her senses sharpened. Every snap of a twig, every rustle of leaves, made her heart race. She had always trusted her instincts, but now, with Keleth by her side, she felt a strange mixture of fear, dependence, and something more she did not yet understand. The wolf suddenly stopped, its ears twitching. It lifted its head, letting out a low, warning growl. Illyra froze, following its gaze. There, among the trees, a dark figure moved, its form shifting like smoke. Its eyes glowed faintly, a cold silver light that cut through the morning mist. Keleth drew his sword with a smooth motion, the blade shimmering with a faint magical glow. "Do not move," he instructed, his voice low but firm. "It senses the bond. It wishes to test us." The figure stepped closer, and Illyra could feel the chill radiating from it. It was no ordinary creature. Its movements were unnatural, almost fluid, as if it were a spirit rather than flesh. Yet it carried a weight, a power that was undeniable. Illyra felt the wolf stiffen beside her, its golden eyes fixed on the figure, muscles coiled. "You have done well to come this far," the figure said, its voice echoing unnaturally through the forest. "But the path ahead is treacherous. One wrong step, and all is lost. Your courage is strong, yet your heart will be tested." Keleth stepped forward, placing himself directly between Illyra and the figure. "Your tests are over," he said firmly. "We are not here to be judged. We are here to end the curse." The figure let out a sound like wind through dead leaves, and then lunged. Illyra's heart leaped as Keleth moved with incredible speed, parrying the attack. The sword clashed with the shadowy form, sparks of silver light scattering through the mist. Illyra instinctively moved closer to the wolf, holding it tightly as Keleth engaged the creature. "You must stay calm," Keleth said, glancing at her briefly. "Focus on the bond. It will protect you if you trust it." Illyra nodded, her hands pressed against the wolf's fur. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting herself feel the pulse of life in the creature beside her, the steady rhythm of its heartbeat. Slowly, the tension in her body began to ease. She realized that her courage, her focus, and her connection to the wolf were part of the magic keeping them safe. Keleth's sword clashed again with the figure, and he grunted under the force of the attack. Illyra felt a surge of fear, but also determination. She could not let Keleth face this alone. Summoning her courage, she spoke softly to the wolf. "Protect him. Protect us." The wolf's growl deepened, and in response, the figure recoiled slightly. It hissed, as if recognizing the bond it could not break. Keleth used the moment to strike, his blade slicing through the shadow. Dispersing part of it into the morning mist, the figure retreated into the trees, melting back into the shadows, leaving only silence behind. Keleth's chest rose and fell rapidly, his grip on the sword tight. He looked at Illyra, a mixture of relief and something else, respect, admiration, perhaps a hint of something deeper. "You did well," he said, sheathing his sword. "The bond is strong, stronger than I expected. You have more courage than many warriors I have known." Illyra's cheeks flushed, but she felt a quiet pride. She had feared the shadows, feared the unknown, yet she had stood firm. And in doing so, she had protected Keleth the wolf and herself. They moved on, the forest slowly changing as they advanced. The trees grew taller, their bark dark and ancient. The snow deepened, and the air was colder, carrying with it the faint scent of magic. Illyra could feel it prickling at her skin, a constant reminder that the curse was near, waiting as they reached a small clearing. Illyra noticed markings on the tree symbols, etched in silver, that glowed faintly. Keleth knelt to examine them. "These are wards," he explained, "placed to guide those who seek the heart of the curse. They also warn of danger. We are close." Illyra followed his gaze, trying to read the symbols, but their meaning was beyond her understanding. Still, she felt a strange connection to them, as if they resonated with the bond she had formed with the wolf and with Keleth. Suddenly, the wolf lifted its head, ears alert, and let out a low, urgent growl. Illyra followed its gaze and froze. Across the clearing, a figure emerged, tall, dark, and cloaked in shadows. Its eyes glowed a fierce silver, and its presence radiated a sense of authority and menace. Keleth's hand went to his sword immediately, his posture protective. "This is the guardian of the heart," he said quietly. "It tests all who approach. We must not falter." The guardian moved closer, and Illyra could feel the magic in the air thrum against her skin. It spoke, its voice like the rustling of dead leaves. "Only those bound by courage and heart may proceed. You have strength, but do you have the resolve to face what lies ahead?" Keleth stepped forward. "We do, and we will not fail." The guardian raised its hands, and suddenly the ground beneath them trembled. Shadows coiled around the trees, twisting and reaching toward them. Illyra's heart raced, but she focused on the bond she shared with the wolf. She placed her hands on its fur and whispered encouragement. Feeling the pulse of life and energy between them, Keleth fought at her side. Parrying attacks and cutting through shadows, his movements fluid and precise. Elira felt a surge of determination. She would not be afraid. She would not falter. And she would not let the curse or the shadows harm the wolf, or the man who had come into her life so unexpectedly. After what felt like hours, shadows began to retreat, dissolving into the mist. The guardian spoke one last time, its voice fading. "You have proven your strength. You may continue. But know this: the final trial is yet to come. It will test not only your courage, but your heart." Keleth sheathed his sword, his chest heaving. He looked at Elira, his eyes softening. "You did well," he said, his voice quiet but filled with respect. "I have never seen anyone face such trials with so much heart." Elira felt a warmth rise in her chest, a mixture of pride, relief, and something deeper she could not name. She realized that this journey had changed her already. She was no longer just a woman living alone in a cabin. She was part of a world far larger, filled with magic, danger, unexpected connections. The wolf nudged her gently, and she looked down into its golden eyes. She understood now why Keleth had said the bond was strong. It was more than protection, it was trust, loyalty, and connection. And through it, she felt a courage she had never known before. As they moved deeper into the forest, Elira noticed the first hints of a rising cliff, a jagged ridge that cut through the snow, leading toward what she could only assume was the heart of the cursed lands. The wind howled through the trees, carrying with it the scent of magic and danger. Elira glanced at Keleth, who moved with confidence and purpose. She realized that she trusted him completely, though she barely knew him. There was a bond forming between them, born of shared trials and mutual respect, one that would be tested in ways they could not yet imagine. And she knew that the journey ahead would demand everything of her: courage, heart, and the willingness to face not only danger, but the truth of her own strength and feelings. Cliffhanger. As they reached the edge of the ridge, Elira saw a castle emerge from the mist in the distance, dark and foreboding. Its towers seemed to pierce the sky, and a sense of ancient power radiated from it. Keleth's face darkened as he whispered, "This is where the curse began, and where we will end it. Are you ready?" Elira's heart pounded, knowing that the final trial awaited them inside the walls of that shadowed fortress. The castle loomed before them like a shadow drawn from nightmares. Its towers pierced the gray sky, and the walls seemed alive with whispers of the past. Elira's breath caught in her throat. She had never seen a place so vast, so filled with power and menace. Yet beside her, Keleth moved with certainty, every step measured, every movement confident. The wolf padded silently at their side, its golden eyes reflecting the faint glow of the snow-dusted ground. "This is it," Keleth said, his voice low, almost reverent. "The heart of the curse. Everything we have faced leads to this place. Once we enter, there is no turning back." Elira swallowed hard. Fear and anticipation warred within her. She had followed Keleth through trials, faced shadows and spirits, and tested her courage beyond what she thought possible. And now, standing before this fortress of darkness, she realized that the greatest challenge, both of magic and of heart, was waiting inside. The massive gates creaked as Keleth pushed them open. The castle interior was a labyrinth of corridors, each lined with towering statues whose eyes seemed to follow their every move. The air was thick with the scent of ancient magic, and the walls hummed faintly, as if alive with hidden power. Elira felt a shiver run down her spine. "It feels alive," she whispered. Keleth nodded. "It is," he said. "The curse flows through these halls. It is not just magic, but memory and anger, bound to this place by those who sought to control power beyond their understanding. We must be careful. One misstep, and the curse could overwhelm us." The wolf growled softly, its gaze sweeping the halls. Elira felt a deep sense of connection between herself, Keleth, and the creature. Together they were a force the curse had not anticipated, a bond forged through courage, trust, and heart. They moved carefully, stepping over cracks in the marble floors, avoiding shadows that seemed to writhe like living things. At the center of the castle, they reached a vast chamber, its ceiling lost in darkness. In the middle stood a pedestal, and upon it rested a crystal orb, glowing with a pale, ghostly light. "The heart," Keleth whispered. "The source of the curse." Elira stepped closer, her eyes wide. The orb pulsed, casting silver patterns across the walls. She felt a tug at her chest, as if the orb was reaching into her soul, testing her resolve. The wolf growled, pressing closer to her, and Keleth's hand brushed against hers, a simple touch, yet one that sent warmth through her despite the cold. Ominous air, suddenly. Shadows erupted from the corners of the room. Twisting, writhing shapes formed creatures of darkness, their eyes glowing with malice. Elira's heart raced, but she stood firm, gripping the wolf tightly. Keleth moved beside her, his sword shimmering with silver light as he engaged the shadows. "You must focus." Keleth shouted over the growls and clashes of magic. "The bond is the key. Trust in it, Elira." Elira closed her eyes, feeling the wolf beneath her hands, sensing its life, its energy, its connection to Keleth. Slowly, she extended that awareness, letting it flow outward, touching the shadows, reaching into the room. The dark shapes hesitated, as if sensing a force they could not overcome. Keleth pressed forward, striking with precision, while Elira's focus guided the wolf, amplifying the bond they shared. Light flared from the crystal orb, responding to the courage and unity of the three of them. Shadows shrieked and dissolved, retreating toward the corners of the room, unable to withstand the combined strength of heart, courage, and trust. The orb pulsed brighter, and Elira felt a wave of energy surge through her, almost overwhelming her senses. Images flashed before her eyes, memories of the forest, of the cabin, of the wolf, when she first found it wounded. She saw Keleth standing tall, his golden eyes watching her with respect and something unspoken. The past, present, and future seemed to merge, and Elira realized that the bond she shared with them both was not merely magical, it was sacred. She opened her eyes and stepped closer to the orb. "We can end this," she said, her voice steady, despite the tremor in her heart. Together, Keleth's gaze met hers, and a silent understanding passed between them. "Together," he echoed. The wolf howled, a sound that echoed through the chamber, resonating with the orb. Elira reached out, placing her hands gently on the crystal. Light flared, brighter than anything she had seen. She felt the shadows push back, their power breaking apart, dissolving into nothingness. The orb's light grew warm, almost comforting, and she realized that the curse was being undone not by force alone, but by the strength of heart and unity. The chamber shook, and for a moment, Elira feared the castle itself would collapse. Keleth's hand found hers, holding tightly as they faced the final surge of power. Together, they focused, heart and courage aligned. The wolf pressed against them, its presence steady and grounding. Then, the final pulse of silver light, the orb shattered, scattering fragments of light like stars across the chamber. The shadows vanished, and a profound silence fell. The oppressive weight that had hung over the castle lifted. Leaving only a sense of calm and renewal, Elira sank to her knees, exhausted but exhilarated. The wolf nuzzled her gently, and Keleth knelt beside her, his hand resting lightly on hers. Neither spoke for a moment, both taking in the victory and the calm that had replaced the darkness. Finally, Keleth spoke, his voice soft but firm. "You have done it. The curse is broken. Your courage, your heart, and your bond with the wolf, it all mattered. You have not only saved this creature, but countless lives tied to this land." Elira looked up at him, her chest heaving. We did it together," she said. "I couldn't have done it alone." Keleth's eyes softened, and for a moment, the weight of his power and authority seemed to vanish, leaving only the man before her. "No," he said quietly. "I could not have done it without you. You were the heart of this victory, Elira, your courage and compassion. They are extraordinary." Elira felt warmth rise to her cheeks, but more than that, a sense of belonging she had never known. She realized that this journey, dangerous and terrifying as it had been, had changed her in ways she could never have imagined. She was no longer a woman alone in the forest. She was part of something larger, something alive with magic, trust, and connection. The wolf padded forward, nuzzling Keleth's hand. And then Elira's. It seemed to approve, its golden eyes gleaming with life and gratitude. Elira laughed softly, a sound of pure relief and joy. Feeling the last remnants of fear dissolve, Keleth stood, offering his hand to help her to her feet. Elira took it, feeling the strength and warmth in his grasp. "Come," he said, his voice gentle. "We have restored balance, but the land will need time to heal." "And so will we," Elira nodded, her gaze drifting over the shattered remnants of the orb and the now peaceful castle. She felt a sense of completion, of purpose fulfilled. Yet she also felt the pull of the bond she shared with Keleth and the wolf. It was a bond that would endure beyond the trials, beyond the curses, and beyond the shadows that had once threatened them. As they left the chamber, Elira glanced at Keleth. "What now?" she asked. Keleth's eyes softened, a rare vulnerability touching them. "Now," he said, "we live, we protect. And perhaps we learn what it means to trust fully and to care deeply. You have proven more than courage, Elira. You have proven heart. And that is the greatest strength of all." Elira felt her heart swell. She realized that she had not only faced fear and darkness, but also her own doubts and uncertainties. And in doing so, she had found a connection deeper than she had ever imagined. With Keleth at her side, and the wolf loyal and strong, she felt ready to face whatever the future held. The castle stood silent behind them as they emerged into the soft light of dawn. The snow glittered, untouched, and the forest seemed renewed. Elira breathed deeply, feeling the crisp air fill her lungs. And for the first time in her life, she felt a profound sense of peace. Keleth turned to her, its expression both regal and tender. "You have changed everything," he said quietly. "Not just the curse, but the world around you. And perhaps you have changed me as well." Elira smiled, a soft, genuine smile. "Then I suppose we face the future together," she said. Keleth's hand found hers again, and the wolf padded between them, golden eyes gleaming. They walked forward, leaving the shadowed castle behind, stepping into a world that was brighter, freer, and alive with possibility. And as Elira glanced back at the towers that had held so much fear and magic, she knew that this journey, this bond, this courage, this love was only the beginning. Ending note, emotional cliffhanger: the curse is broken. The shadows are gone, and the bond between Elira, Keleth, and the wolf is stronger than ever. Yet, as the forest stirs with new life and possibilities, Elira realizes that adventure, danger, and growth never truly end, that her heart now carries both courage and love she never expected to find.